And it says we're live. It's happening. I'm fired up to talk to you today, buddy. How you doing? This is
Bro,
Mondale Robinson, for the
what's
record.
I am Mondale Robinson for the record. What's up, bro?
What's happening?
Not much.
Mondale Robinson of Black Male Voter Project fame, of infield fame as the presiding mayor. I'm fired up to talk to you today because we had a long conversation last time about
Yeah.
the civic journey of Black men. And I want to look at a group that has been in opposition to you all for some time,
Mm,
which is the white men of the South.
yeah.
And I think we talked about this off the record a while ago. There's a fundamental maybe misunderstanding of them, and you have intimate experience in every way dealing with Southern white men. You've dealt with the Klan coming after you at times. You've obviously dealt with them as an adversarial political group. And Lindsey Graham's passing, a lot of people are asking me over the weekend, what am I going to say about Lindsey Graham's passing? I tend to stay above the fray oftentimes because I'm forward looking. So my mind just goes to, there's a Senate seat in South Carolina that's maybe more open than it used to be. And more broadly, there's a bunch of people who maybe haven't been part of our pro-democracy camp or our social justice camp for some time that may be uniquely able to be won over in this moment for several reasons. But I want to do, before I start just like hammering you with questions, because I have so much to learn from you, I want to give you the floor. Lindsey Graham passed this weekend. I don't know if you had any thoughts you wanted to share on that front.
Yeah, listen, I think I know, in this moment, in the era of algorithms and also social media sites, people want to say the craziest thing or the most outlandish thing that's gonna get the most votes, or the most views. But I think
Right.
somebody died. Somebody loved him. Somebody died, and I think I have no love lost for Lindsey Graham. He was a policy racist, right? Like, so I
Mhm.
don't care what people tell me about who his friends were,
He
who
was
he was
nice to
cool
a
with.
guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was nice to guy. I don't need to hear that. He was a policy racist, and that can't be argued because his votes are documented. He's also part of the reason we have a Donald Trump after he stood in staunch disagreement who this person was and what he could mean to his party, not my party, his party. What I would say though is maybe this moment should tell us something beyond party. And it's we shouldn't have our government, a government that is so important to not just this country, but to the entire world. The entire world. We shouldn't have it ran octogenarians and also, people who are even older, secretary, like I think he was in his 70s, 79, 80 or something. So I think we need to reevaluate like what we're doing about term limits. This is a great moment to have this conversation, not to say that old people or people that are in their 70s or 80s have no place in society. It is to say though, we should have term limits. We shouldn't have people who are dying in office. We shouldn't have people 5 and 6 generation removed from the youngest voters like we see at the Supreme Court, like we see in the Senate. It's not just him, right? Where is Mitch McConnell? I mean, they posted a
Yeah.
picture, but I don't know if they had I don't know if they had a stick him up. I don't know if what. So
We lost you.
I'm worried about our entire government and how we see ourselves in this moment and what's next. So if anything comes from this and forward looking, let's get serious about the conversation about term limits.
We can talk about that more, but I want to flip back to his constituents, Lindsey Graham's constituents, the oftentimes large group of white men that vote for Lindsey Graham. And I think there's a misunderstanding sometime about our history of white male voters, in that obviously there's slavery in the South, and then we have the modern Republican Party, which oftentimes, to your point, are policy racist, if not, the type of racist that yells the N word, when they're in traffic,
Right.
but they're policy racist oftentimes. But there
Right.
was a moment pre-Nixon Southern strategy where Democrats were winning in the South, even with white male support at times. And then Nixon executed the Southern strategy, which largely used abortion and some other things to win over the religious groups in the South. Can you walk me through, how do you see the history of white male voters in the South? Those are kind of like my hallmark moments that got us to where we are today. But how do you see the history of white male voters and how priorities have changed for them over time?
Yeah, I don't know if priorities changed at all. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
the trajectory of white male voters in the South is directly linked to black males and black people's position on the voter roll, right? If you think
Hmm.
about when Democrats had control of the South, it was when black people couldn't participate. It wasn't until you know, black people were allowed to be seated at the National Democratic National Convention did Ronald Reagan and Strom Thurmond leave the Democratic Party and become the Republicans. This categorical
Hmm.
switch that we saw. A lot of people think it just happened all at once, but in actuality, you saw black people starting to leave the Democratic Party. Or starting, you saw white people starting to leave the Democratic Party early on when they started to initiate safety network to include people beyond the racist policies that had excluded black people from safety, i.e., uh, uh, the programs from Lyndon B. Johnson, right? So when we saw
Hmm.
all of this happen in the '60s, it was a complete about face for what whiteness had meant for our government. And we were never a. Oh, I think an easier way, clear way to say it for your viewers, Xander, is this: white men left the Democratic Party when we start working on a multiracial democratic society.
That
That
project created
project.
mass expel from the Southern white voters. Do you think most of my lifetime, obviously we're generalizing here, but Southern white men were a demographic to overcome? That's how it was positioned to me, anyways, right? They were demographic to overcome to build that project. There's a couple things that are giving me hope that that is not as solid as it's been throughout our history. One is Trump turning the Republican base into an economic populist base, doing Fred Hampton's work for him. Uh, Two is the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, which, obviously is not good, but it did uh, weaken the partnership between the religious groups and the Republican Party. What's your thought on this demographic? Is there an opportunity there? Am I just being too optimistic? You know this group much better than me. How should I think about this moment with them?
Yeah, I think there's two things that could be true. Here's what we should know and what we should always say. Donald Trump won over a majority of white men voters, but every Republican won over a majority of white men voters. And I don't know if economic is driving white men in the South to vote for Trump as much as it's about what they've been taught their entire life. And what they've
Hmm.
been taught, that the trickery of white supremacy, the invisibility of white supremacy for them has told them that people that look like me are taking and replacing and trying to move them out than their ancestors. Nothing that they're doing now or the policies that are in place now has anything to do with equity. And I think until they understand that equity is not anti-white man, but is better for all of us, we're going to have this problem, not just for Trump, but for everybody. I mean, we think about Trump. There was a Tea Party movement that led to Trump, right? And I think Donald Trump he can't be divorced. His person can't be divorced from the history of the long history in this country of white backlash to black forward movement. So we see Barack Obama's presidency, then we see this Donald Trump movement, and I think it goes back to this misteaching, the miseducating of America's white man about what the Civil War was, why it was fought, and how that pedagogy and also that academia became a part of these people's existence in a way that's toxic to all of us, especially their own survival, because there's no economic benefit for majority of white men, even those who are doing half well, owning large farms, right? Donald Trump is toxic to them in this moment. Yet there's another economy. That's the economy of racial pride that exists that is moving these. And I'm not even saying it's all the white men, but I'm saying Donald Trump's base is 30% of this country and it's solid. So we must acknowledge that those people can't all say that they're doing better under Trump when we see what's going on with our economy in this moment, right? So until we are able to make people or unlearn people of all of the lies about our history and then get them people past the point where they feel guilty for something that they're not responsible for, unless, of course, they are inside feeling that black people and other people are less than and shouldn't have equal voice in this environment. What I don't believe, Xander, though, is that it is our job to bring along all black men or all white men. There are some people who will believe what they believe, and we need to get comfortable understanding that
Mm.
in the white man demographic.
We just lost you for a little bit there, Mondale. Can
No,
you just
I'm here.
repeat the last sentence?
Oh. Yeah, I said we need to figure out who in the white man demographic is malleable. Meaning we could give them information. We could give them information and they can move. They can move away from their miseducation, and those are the ones we need to focus on. And I think that the we that I'm talking about has to be people that look like you, Xander. It has to be well-meaning white men that reach their demographic. I would never invite you, Xander, to be a part of what we do at Black Male Voter Project because that work is so intricate and also so intimate that it requires a vulnerability that leaves when others are in the room. Not just you, not even black women should be in that room sometimes. And I try to tell people I'm not in the position to criticize or take critique of black men from people who are not in relationship. And I think if we talk about white men in that way, if white men are being critiqued by white men in a space where it's safe for them to have their arguments, then I think the ones that can be peeled off will be peeled off, but it won't be by loudmouth black men like me. It has to be by loudmouth, well-meaning white men like you.
You laid out two different strategies there as well. Well, really two different, and then a way to take on those strategies. One is undoing indoctrination, right? You're saying indoctrination is this massive thing, how they understand history. And a lot of people will be surprised to learn, the Confederate statues that people see weren't built in 1860. They were built as a project. I think it was called the Sisters of the Confederacy, built a lot of them in like the 20s.
The daughters of the Confederacy.
Daughters of the Confederacy, sorry, yeah. Daughters of the Confederacy built a lot of them in the 20s and 30s. And it's been a massive project, to your point, to indoctrinate people in a type of history that says there's a finite amount of resources. You need to keep yours, and they're going to take yours. Yeah.
Can I say something real quick?
Please do. If we're on a podcast featuring you, you should say things all the time. Go for it.
I think it's important that people don't breeze over what you just said. The Confederate monuments were not put up after the Civil War. They were put up when these daughters when these women who were in the antebellum South in the slavery time, they were the wealthy class, the slave owners' daughters, wives, cousins, sisters, and moms, right? In certain cases, these people got together, these well-to-do, wealthy white women in the South, and said they are forgetting our sons, our husbands, and like this. So this is years after the war had been fought, and then they people are concerned about the Confederate monuments, as we should be. But these women, the daughters of Confederacy, did something more powerful, more that is still lasting to this day. They got with generals that survived the war who had influence over Southern society, and they created a book list. They created a curriculum for Southern schools that said you cannot talk bad, you cannot teach anything negative about the Confederacy. You cannot talk about the war in any context except for Northern aggression. You cannot talk about the clans in any light other than protected and Christian. And this was a list. There's a list of books. You should read about this. So the work of them to create an entire new curricula in the South that was taught up into the 60s. Think about that. So those people, Lindsey Graham and those people, went through the schools that were led, that had this book list. They were banning books then, brother. Go look at their banned book list and go look at the people that they couldn't talk positive or they couldn't talk negative about. And it was created by then, and it was put out in every Southern school district. So when you think about that, this is the problem of
Donald Trump
now.
It's a lot to overcome.
And I don't know if it's possible in those generations, right? Because now we have a new form of that learning or relearning American history with Donald Trump banning books. And these people, this current administration, and also this current form of white man, we're talking about the proverbial white man, they're learning a new form of American history. And I don't know what generation, what is it, 2070, the betas? The betas will be trying to forget this or fighting against this if we don't correct it right now.
Right. I was struck by that when I was doing refugee work. That it stood out to me. I talked to kids who had fought in ISIS. I talked to kids who had left Afghanistan at different points in that war. Um, Best propaganda is not about lying necessarily. It is like telling a specific story, specifically with a specific starting point. Who was attacked unprovoked? Who was just being defensive? Who's just trying to protect their people? Miles and I were talking about. I asked him, I'm like, what's your take on how our relationship with Iran is so different than the Saudis? Like, both are, completely like conservative monarch style governments. And he said, well, one works within our global economy and one doesn't. And, we've had friction with them since they overthrew the Shah. And like that story works from like an American's perspective. You start there. But if you go back and say, hey, after Sykes-Picot, we put the Sauds in charge of what's now Saudi Arabia. And we overthrew in the 50s, we overthrew a democratically elected president, Mossadegh, that was doing a great job running Iran for the people and instilled the Shah with the help of the CIA. Then all of a sudden, the Iranians are the kind of the defensive actors, et cetera. So propaganda is oftentimes about when you start your story and what you put in and what you keep out versus like complete lies. And just one more thing I want to say, because I have the good fortune when I'm feeling a little spicy, and I was feeling spicy after Graham died. I can text the Mandela family and the King family and go, guys, how should I think about this? And they said something that you just mentioned, which is like people, all people, even the leaders you despise, are victims of systems. Are victims of systems. And so remember, to your point, Lindsey Graham went through a schooling developed by the daughters of the Confederacy, who were brainwashed by their Confederate families and whatnot. And so it was a good reminder. Can I ask you, Mondale, who's been best at undoing that fuckery, at undoing that education? Have you seen successful efforts at this in the South in different places? What should we be scaling if you've seen anything that's been successful?
Yeah, I think for me, I've not seen large scale correcting of this. Um, I hear people out on the West Coast speaking or talking about histories that was learned in the South through this miseducation. I do.
Right.
I would put out Jane with her blue and brown eye experiment. She did it. She does great work, but I think it's small scale and it's more performative because of the way the internet is right now. But I think if we think
Can you
about
share
what she
what is it? What is it for those that
so
don't know?
so Jane would take, she's a white woman from Kentucky, would take a group of white people, two brown eyes and blue eyed people. She would say white students and put them in a place and demonize them just for their blue eyes in classroom settings, like college age students, and she would, whatever blue eye students did, she would penalize them regardless if they were right or wrong, and then she would like never let them be victim, and they would break down within one class period, and she was trying to explain to them, this is what America does to black people, it has been doing to black people, and they couldn't see it, but I see, like by the end of the day or this 2 day training period, you would see people become different people about race because of what just simply because you had blue eyes, and it became something to target, and people were like, you're just because I have blue eyes, or and she was just sitting back letting people who would otherwise be racist learn how bad it is to be racist.
Mm, mm. Yeah, everyone should experience. I remember I went out to Liberia. I taught entrepreneurship there, and everyone should. I was working with a great peace leader out there, Kimmy Weeks. If you don't know him, like the guy is absolutely incredible. Helped in the first Liberian Civil War when he was 16. Organized the youth disarmament program, but everyone should experience being a minority at some point. It is really helpful for perspective. I mean, I was even being there. A weird thing, Mondale, you probably feel this. Uh, I'm sure too. It's like I was even surprised that even when I was being treated positively because I was a minority, it was uncomfortable. Like you just wanted the feature. Even on the good days when I was being treated, I wanted to be able to drop that differentiation so I could just
Yeah.
be with folks, be one of them when we're playing sports or hanging out or whatever it was. That's awesome. That's awesome that she's like kind of artificially creating not only the experience of being a minority, but the experience of being prejudiced. Is that scalable? Is that the best model you've seen? Can we scale
And
that?
yeah, and I think that's my thing. Like, I don't know it's scalable. Also, I don't know the long term. Like, uh, I mean, I don't know the benefit of it because when you say going back home, so I don't know how, you understand what I'm saying? I don't. Say,
Mondale, you broke up a little bit for me. I don't know if you're breaking up for our audience. Guys in the comments, let me know if Mondale's breaking up for you too. Sometimes
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Xander, can you hear me? I can hear you perfectly.
I can hear you. I can hear you now. You just came up. You were breaking up though. They said you were breaking up. Can you just say the last part one more time?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's scalable. I don't know if we have the ability to put blue-eye and brown-eyed people in rooms and change the world in that manner. I don't think it's a quick fix. I think though through education, proper education about what really happened in our history, I think that we could correct some things.
Why did education integration fail? Like the pre-60s
Never
thesis
happened.
was like,
It never happened.
yeah. Tell me more. Say more.
It never happened. We still in the South. All of these people who go to charter school and send their kids to charter school, you're participating in something that was birthed out of racism in the South. We didn't have these church schools until they ordered segregation. I mean, integration. Sorry, not segregation. They ordered
Yeah,
integration
yeah, yeah.
in the South. And then a bunch of white people said, we're not going to send our kids to these schools. We're going to start our own schools. So they started these religious church schools. And that was the beginning of it. We don't, charter schools still look like what they were designed to do, strip money from public schools so as to not fully fund where black and brown people were. In that time, black people were educated. And if you look at our school districts right now, for the most part, they are still segregated. They are
Do
still
you think the
segregated. And I,
integration thesis was
and I
still good then? We just didn't see it. Was the integration thesis the right thesis?
the thesis was good. I think the problem was we didn't create the mechanism policy wise to make sure it happened. Like we still, because when we allow schools to be funded by tax dollars, and we know that other systems are racist, like economic systems are racist, then we're telling blacks in black neighborhoods that your school will be less than by default than what they are in affluent white schools. And I think that's an uncomfortable thing that if you say it slow, a lot slower than I just said it, and unpack it, it's America telling its students that we know your neighborhood is poor, and we're gonna let that be the law. That's how we're gonna underfund your school. And I
Mm.
think we should be uncomfortable with that.
Because the reason I asked, the version of intervention that you laid out was like it was based on empathy, right? It's like go walk in their shoes, experience that with the woman that's taking people that then have like this prejudiced day. Um, but then there was this thesis. I mean, even like you heard it all the way through like Facebook. It's like make sure people come together, build friendships across those lines, and maybe you can kill racism in a generation. And education was maybe the most hopeful place because it's when people are young. And then also if you try to, miseducate and talk about a history that other people know is not true, at least, that propaganda is running into, crashing into reality in the form of the, black and brown students that are in the room. When we think about, if empathy is one strategy and just being together more, sharing community more is another one. Are there
Yeah,
things that are scalable on that front? School integration being one thesis.
yeah. I mean, listen, I'm a proponent of busing. We need to figure out a way to integrate schools quickly. I think the biggest way we need government. We need our government intervention in.
We lost him again briefly. Hold tight, gang. He's been coming back. There we go.
Sorry about that, brother.
All good. All good. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. We need our government intervention in creating systems to address white supremacy. We have no systems in this country to address white supremacy. Let me give you an example. North Carolina passed a budget last week for the first time in 2 years. Democratic governor signed it, smiled and took a photo op, all of this. In that budget, brother, they eliminated every the DEI program in every department, in every agency at the state level. So they signed a budget for the first time in 2 years, and black unemployment went up because of that budget.
Hmm.
Because all those positions got.
One second. He'll be right back. That's 1 second. If he keeps cutting,
Listen, let me apologize. I appreciate the people who have the capacity to sit here and say, "Damn it, Xander, why do you keep talking to this guy? He's always on the move." It is important to know that I'm always on the move working for people, either black men through the Black Male Voter Project or poor people in Enfield where I'm mayor. And we happen to be the 8th poorest town in this country and the 1st poorest town in North Carolina. And all of those systems are trying to be dismantled by me always being on the move. So please be patient with Xander and me as we try to make sure this podcast works.
That was,
But
I mean,
yeah,
that
like I
was
was
that was just for 1 sec, Mondale. That was my whole arc on as I got on. I'm new on Substack too, and as I got on here, there's a lot of influencers and content creators that are in stable environments and have opinions and whatnot. And I was like, I have to bring on more of my organizers, more of the heroes that are in the field that are fighting, more people that are with the people every day. And one of the trade-offs is you guys don't have as good a connection. My organizer friends who are out there on the road, pounding pavement, don't have as good an internet connection. So it is the penalty we pay for hearing from, the great Mondale Robinson and your peers. It's all good, buddy.
I appreciate that. So yeah, man, I think government intervention, if we intentionally create programs that address equity and diversity, not in the light of something. I think our president falling asleep on national or international on stages has taken this anti-woke thing too far. Like that was my attempt at a joke, Xander. You missed it. Come on,
So,
bro. Yeah.
the choppiness killed the delivery. I honestly, I was spacing out on. I want to hear your Mount Rushmore of those policies. Like, what are those for? I was thinking about that question for you. Like, okay, I'm giving you superpowers. Give me your top 4 policies that start to dismantle that white supremacy framework that we've been living under.
Yeah, so I think they would be grounded in South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission findings, and unlike them, we would need to put legs. Desmond Tutu, that team did a great job, but they didn't give legs to the programs. So I think we need first a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in America. We need reparations for Black people, and part of that reparations has to include the teachings, correct teachings, and of our white brothers and sisters. Purposes, not to demonize people, but to bring everybody up to speed on what America truly is and what her history truly is. I think those 2 things are the beginning. After that, I think we need to wholeheartedly address our billion and trillionaire problem. We also need to address, and lastly, I would say we need to eliminate and housing deprivation in this country, deprivation in this country. People should not be hungry or homeless in this country unless it's a choice by them. I think those are my 4 policies about Rushmore.
It's interesting. You're saying something that is slightly. I've had a slightly different thesis on the reparations thing. Like part of my push for basic income was based on this idea that I came from social justice, so I was familiar with reparations. I was supportive of them, but I was wondering if through grabbing everyone, we can at least achieve the economic. We can popularize it enough, and then achieve the economic goals that reparation would set out for. Rectifying the 40 acres and a mule promise that was never delivered. But still organizing some of the other folks. Now, the economic transfer, when you talked about billionaires and trillionaires, I can't believe you even say that word now. The economic transfer is still going to happen, right? It's going to come from one group for the most part and come to another. But it sounds like you don't feel like if we don't pair that reparations with truth and reconciliation, it won't have the same impact. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I don't think. I think for me, reparations is definitely about correcting what happened, making people whole. Because when we talk about all of the wealthy industries in this country that has ties to slavery, then it is illogical to believe that we don't believe that Black people made whole. Because right now in America, Black people are the neighbor who had their car stolen by their neighbor, and that car was a red Corvette with their name on it. The tag said Black people. and my neighbor has that Corvette parked in their yard, and they believe because they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I stole your car," that we are good. No, we're not good because my car is still parked in your yard. So
Mhm.
we have to first do that before we can move forward. As it pertains to that, I think the education part. I think we there's an equity that exists in information, and I mean like true information, not what we get off of. That's when people are source points are Facebook and Twitter's accounts. Like when
Right, right, right.
when it's vetted information about who we are and truly who we are, I think enough Americans can see the benefit of it. When we tie our actions to what needs to happen and who benefits from it. Um, I think people understand. People let me hear people. I hear people say all the time, "Why do I need to pay reparations? I didn't have any slaves." And I think that short sightedness is to say that people believe that reparation is an individual task or something owed by individuals, when instead slavery was a government institution, an institution propped up by government through all through the legalization and also the allowing of people to be employed for.
Mm. I don't know where you're at, but I hope you make it through the other side so we can keep hearing what you're saying, brother. When he gets back on, I have a story to share about a success in organizing an unlikely champion of reparations if we get Mondale back. But I want to wait for him because I want to get his feedback on this as well. If he is coming back. If not, we'll have to do this. We're calling this Bringing Home the Bacon. It's based on Bacon's Rebellion, which happened pre-America being America. It happened in the 1600s. It was a revolution of sorts led by black and white poor citizens, both dealing with different versions of enslavement. And it was the beginning of a process where elites defined white and defined black, and the rules where chattel slavery and generational slavery was true for black slaves, but not for white slaves and servants. And really was the end of poor white and black people as a powerful coalition fighting back against elites. And so that's why we call this Bringing Home the Bacon. I don't know if Mondale is going to uh, come back on this stream. I'm going to give him 2 minutes. I'll share my story, and then I hope you guys don't mind me repeating it. I was on an airplane. The guy I think he was from Kentucky, Hunter, wearing camo, and because how I present, because I've picked up shooting as a hobby, because of a few other things. Sometimes those guys get a little more comfortable with me and start sharing, how they feel, how they really feel. And I'm never, shy about that. I tell people where my stances, my morality, and my policy positions sit. But we got onto the subject of slavery, and he was saying just exactly what Mondale Robinson was saying, which is that it's so long ago, it wasn't me. I don't know how we could possibly rectify it. I think they're whining about it, etc. all of the things. But we talked more, and this is like a good example of like the importance of listening to people. We talked more, and I tried to understand where his political beliefs were held, and he has a deep distrust for the federal government. And he was talking about the deep state and the CIA and the FBI, and some things I find about that criticism I find very true. Obviously, if you followed what went on during the civil rights movement when J. Edgar Hoover was at the head of it, trying to get Martin Luther King to kill himself, literally killing Fred Hampton. There's a lot of truth to that cynicism, and then some is more conspiratorial. But I was like, okay, he has a model for that type of cynicism. And then I walked him through the Contra Wars, Reagan's war on drugs, that simultaneously launched as we were supporting different groups transporting drugs into Black communities to sell those drugs. And so I said, let's pull back for a second. Oh, Mondale Robinson back in the waiting room. Let me bring him in.
Mondale, let me just say, this is a criticism. I got a criticism. There's nowhere in the world I believe with all of the technology we have, there should be nowhere in the world you have to go where your cell phone signal drops. That makes no sense to me. I don't understand that. How do we have a trillionaire and we can't even keep phone calls going? Especially guys.
Doom phone call. Doom phone call. It's all good, Mondale. We love you, brother. You back?
Look at this. How is it between New York and Manhattan? I mean Manhattan and JFK. Is there a spot where your phone call drops? And how much money? I have AT&T and I have T-Mobile. How much money do they make on both of it? I have two lines on this phone. How much profit? You should not have a profit. You should not be a billion-dollar company and you can't keep service up in New York City. It ain't no storm. It ain't a cloud in the
It
sky.
might be Elon, brother. Elon might be taking out the competition, so we all get on Starlink. Now he's got $1 trillion to throw around. Where I was mid-story when you jumped on, though, and I really want to share this story with you.
Go ahead.
I don't know how to say your name. Someone asked how old I am. I'm 40. I just turned 40. Just turned 40 a couple months ago. What I was saying is I had success with an unlikely friend on reparations when I was on an airplane. I'll give the amended version because I was mid-story. I sat down next to a guy from Kentucky in all camo. And because, I go shooting and everything, and I look how I look. Those guys get pretty comfortable with me pretty quickly and make some assumptions. And so he was letting me know what camp he was in. I quickly, I don't shy away from those conversations because I know how to work those conversations. So I let him know the work I do and where I stand on these things. But I brought up the slavery thing to your point. It's happened so long ago. I can't believe these guys are still whining about this, like everything that you mentioned, right? But as I was paying attention to him, he did have a very anti-deep state FBI, CIA thing going on, as a lot of these guys do right now. And so I said, all right, let's erase all of history. Let me just take you to 1980. Let's talk about the Iran-Contra wars. You have a president illegally funding a war by piping drugs or supporting the piping of drugs into a community. Let's just call them a community, a specific community. He's pumping drugs into there and getting their people hooked on drugs so they can funnel non-tax money into wars that Congress said he cannot fight. At the same time, that president launches a war on drugs to arrest those guys that are selling the drugs that we are supporting being moved into the country. So we are getting the mothers addicted to drugs. We are asking the fathers to sell them so we can use the money to support our foreign policy that's illegal. And then we are arresting the fathers and putting them in jail to the tune of tens of millions of individuals cycled throughout the justice system. Every year, gang, 10 million people. There's 2.5 million people in the justice system. I think it's 2 now because we've had some successes. But every year, 10 million people cycle through it. And that doesn't count parole and probation, which is another 7 million people that have lost their rights in various ways too. Massive, massive system. When I talked to him about the deep state, it didn't have the same defenses. He's like, that's fucked up. It like kind of triggered a thing he believed in already. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's good organizing, figuring out what you believe in already. Yeah. He's like, oh, I could see why you need to help that community out. You know, I had him this is a guy that was on his way to deer hunting wearing full camo and was like 2 more sentences away from dropping an N-word before I slowed him down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and again, I think that camo and your personhood is exactly what goes back to what I was saying. It's never going to be a job where me and that guy going to sit beside each other on an airplane. We might sit beside each other and talk about country music that we both enjoy. Who's our favorite artist? He might say Jason Aldean, and I might be like, no fucking way. And I might say, I no way. But anyway, I think this is why we need to understand. Every organizing mission is not for not every entity or an individual, and I think so. This is why I think it's good for us in that way to be honest about the role that people play. This is why I'm so angry by celebrity influencers taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
They know they don't qualify when it's so important. Like when people pretend that because you have a certain amount of followers or a certain color check beside your name, then you are that valuable to that communities you come from. When you don't, it is that much more dangerous.
I know we're close to time, and you're about to jump in the airport over there. Does the candidacy of someone like James Tallarico, does that start to look like who you would think in another world where he's an organizer, not a candidate? Should we be recruiting the Tallaricos of the world? And should there be a bigger project to find those people? What's your reaction to like what does the project look like to generate those organizers? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And here's the thing: Tallarico pre-candidacy, pre-Senate candidate. He was the exact medicine. He was the bomb that was working, that needed to work for a certain segment. These Malibu white men I was telling you about. He was it.
Yeah.
What we see right now, though, is we've seen the Democratic Senate Committee put its fangs in him, and now he's running a campaign that looks like the traditional campaign. He's raising more money than any that we've ever seen. Right now, none of the organizations that engage around this country are really fully fit, but the candidates like him and John Ossoff are getting all the money. That says something about our moment, and that's a whole other conversation. Maybe next Monday when I'm in hopefully a more stable place. But I think right now we see him spending he's spent millions of dollars on TV ads, and I think that acquiescence to the party, to the establishment, is going to distance him from the work that he could do with white men. Because I think there was something powerful about him and the conversations he was having with white men that were antithetical to his policies, beliefs. So they thought, people that thought they were against him, and then when they have a conversation with him, we realize that he's not a two-headed devil. He's just a Democrat that can articulate what he believes, and it's not what I thought or what I was told.
Right.
And I think you lose that when all you do, instead of talking to communities and being in community, and you're just on TV talking about the person you're running against and just putting the D and the R's beside names.
Oh man, you just said something. I will leave it at this. You just said something I was saying all weekend. I don't know why this got stuck in my head, but I was like, we're the geeks. And so we are always, that phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. We're the geeks. And so we're always talking about, maybe we need to change what we're saying. Maybe we need to change the policies we support, etc. And it is like in the real world, it is how you say it. It's who's saying it. It's how you say it. How do you express it? And you hear that. I talked to Warnock. He said it. I talked to Charles Booker in Kentucky. He said it. You brought it up with Tallarico. It's a lot about just being present in these communities and just explaining the policies from an empathetic perspective, not changing the Democratic policies writ large. We don't have terrible policies. I think we could add some, but it is like literally just that how we're communicating, who we're empowering to communicate, and the bench and how we're building them up. I mean, we are missing the infrastructure to build that type of non-party affiliated leadership, because that does create a lot of cynicism if you feel like it's a party that's hunting for your vote from the get-go. But I think it's such an important point. We'll talk about that more next time you're on with us. I'll let you go through airport security. It looks like you're getting close based on the overhead.
Yeah, I'm definitely there. Let me say one thing that we should definitely talk about Monday, bro. Because Desmond is the continuation. Desmond is the continuation of this conversation and what's happening right now about what's being said and what ain't being said, and the problem with the parties, simply because he's running as an independent, and how the party used him as a darling, and he was on New York Times and got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and now they got no energy for him. They're telling him he's not electable statewide in Florida, when he has connections to over 7 million families that he helped restore some of their rights. So now, because he doesn't fit their mold, they're not interested in that. I think we should have that conversation.
We should bring him on next time too. I just talked to Desmond. I thought about running his PAC for a little while before I launched Defiance. I was going to help Desmond. This is Desmond Meade, Nobel Peace Prize nominee Desmond Meade, who helped pass Amendment 4, led the fight to pass Amendment 4 in Florida, which restored voting rights for 1.5 million formerly incarcerated people in Florida. It was the largest voter enfranchisement act since the VRA, since the Voting Rights Act. Mondale and I actually didn't know each other at the time, but we're both helping out with that campaign as it was going down. That's a great place to leave it. And yeah, let's maybe we bring Desmond on and chat with us next time. All right, brother. I'll let you run.
Peace, man. Peace, y'all. Thank y'all for your patience.
Later, buddy.
Later.